मांडुक्य कारिका प्रणाम मंत्र। ओम भद्रम कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवा भद्रम पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्रा स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः विषेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इंद्रो वृद्धश्रवा स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदा स्वस्ति नस्ताक्ष्यो वरिष्ठनेमि स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम। The previous talk we had an introduction to this fourth chapter, which is Alat Shanti, the cessation of the fire circle. Now, what we were discussing in the previous talk, so continues for a few verses. If you go verse by verse, it might be difficult for you to grasp what is being said. So I'm giving you a complete picture. The complete picture deals with, first you have to remember what is Mandukya Karika about. If somebody asks you, you have been studying Mandukya Karika, what is Mandukya Karika about? In one sentence, Mandukya Karika is about Brahman alone exists. Consciousness alone exists. So what about the multiplicity that we see all around us? What about the world and universe and all these huge things that we say? Mandukya Karika says, these things are unreal. In reality, these are all Brahman itself. It is your mind that is making you see things like that. So, is it dream? No, it's not dream. It's just a state. Is it all shunya? Problem with Buddhists is when they say that it's all shunya. They remove consciousness too. Mandukya Karika doesn't do that. It accepts Brahman to be the truth and to be the only truth. Nothing else exists. But what about this existence, this multiplicity that we see all around us? Now, Mandukya Karika, it took up verses from the Upanishads, Mandukya Upanishad, then went logically, and then brought up different philosophies. And now the entire thing is brought on one single platform. What it is essentially discussing is that, see, what we are going to discuss is very simple, extremely simple. Thing is, because you may not have heard of these things earlier, you might find these things pretty complicated. If you only listen to it carefully, or maybe you take down the points, the idea will become absolutely clear. When Mandukya Karika says that it is Ajatavad, there never was any creation the way we understand. God existed in the beginning, God exists in the middle, and God will continue to exist in the end. There is only one existence, and that is God. It is hopelessly and absolutely counterintuitive. When we say counterintuitive, it means that we don't want to accept it. Those of you who are familiar with the story of science, whenever a scientist in whatever field came up with some new discovery, some new theory, other scientists did not want to accept that. Because they felt it to be counterintuitive. To tell you a very simple thing, today, because of gravitation, we know that whether an object is heavy or is less heavy, the effect of gravitational pull is same on both of them. But at the time of Galileo, when Galileo came up with this idea, his brother scientists did not want to accept it. Is such a simple thing. Today, what appears to us simple and normal, there was a time when it was, it sounded absolute trash because it appeared to be counterintuitive. And then we developed our minds, we developed our brains, and it came within the realm of our knowledge. What is counterintuitive about Mandukya Karika? It is Mandukya Karika is saying God alone exists, nothing else exists. But we see things, but we don't see God. Mandukya Karika is saying that God alone exists, Brahman alone exists. Something which we don't see, we don't feel, we don't experience. And it says things you feel, things you experience that does not exist in reality. So, whatever discussion we had in the past, now we are coming to the present verses. And what it does, it simply takes up the theory of cause and effect. A theory of cause and effect, which of course will come after a few verses, but probably we will have to continue with this discussion in the next talk also. Let's understand what exactly the theory of cause and effect is and how it affects the philosophy. Theory of cause and effect is the most common thing that we have experienced since our birth. A newborn baby feels hungry, and the pangs of hunger makes it cry. The baby doesn't think about it. It's an instinctive thing that neuromotor is fixed in such a way that the baby will cry and the baby is fed. And slowly it learns that whenever you cry, you get what you want. And we continue with that learning, that intuition throughout our life. Even in case of nations, when the nations want to do something, they will start crying. They will start throwing tantrums. Actually, tantrum is only a form of crying. So when you find some powerful country, let's not name them, when they keep on screaming that this part is, that part of world is their own, and etc., etc., they're actually doing the same thing that a baby does, crying for food. It's an instinctive thing which slowly gets converted into a habit, and then you make a conscious effort of it. You must have come across people who keep on cribbing, who keep on complaining all the time, because that's what they have learned since their childhood. No, no, not their childhood, since their babyhood, since their birth. As we grow, we realize that when you take something sweet, so something sugary, it tastes sweet. If you take chili, your mouth burns, etc. So there is a very clear relationship between cause and effect. Now, knowledge, the way we understand, has been imparted to us from two different sources. One is philosophers, and second is scientists. If you go to the time of the Greeks, during the time of Greeks, philosophers and scientists seem to be same, like Pythagoras, Aristotle. They were philosophers, and they also dabbled in science and mathematics. However, some of the ideas by these philosophers were not really based on cause and effect, because science is everything about cause and effect. Science is everything about cause and effect. You see an effect, from that effect, you make a theory. This is the theory behind it. And from that theory, you make predictions and then see if the new things, the new effects comply with your theory. This is science. Whatever, whether that be in biology, that be in chemistry, that be in physics, whatever. Even economics. The economists see the movement in the market, dynamics of the market, and they make a theory. Or should it be a hypothesis? God knows. I mean, And from there, they come up with a theory and they say, market will behave in this way, society will behave in this way. And they even get a Nobel Prize for it. And then after some time, it is found that no, it doesn't work. But by then, they have taken a Nobel Prize. To give you an example, how cause and effect works, and how cause and effect has come to rule our life, although it's completely wrong. One of the scientists, like those of you who are familiar with the world history, would know something that we have mentioned here and there once in a while, that Greeks were credited to have initiated the study of philosophy, and they were into mathematics. Geometry is their great contribution, and they also gave some ideas about physics. They gave us ideas about atoms and all, and those ideas continued till the 20th century, when atom was broken apart, split apart. There was this there was a time came when Greeks were demolished by the Romans, and Romans themselves decayed, and then began the dark ages of Europe, the famous dark ages. It continued practically up to 15th 16th century. So the Lord came, Jesus came, and it brought total darkness in their land. Whereas an incarnation should bring enlightenment. That's why, Europeans are extremely wary of science, of religion, because religion gave them darkness. Now, during that period, the Arabic world, Arabic world was the glory of the world as far as learning is concerned. There were philosophers, there were mathematicians, there were physicists, there were thinkers. India, well, in India, Shankaracharya had already gone, and other philosophers were fighting over the meaning of a particular word, a particular statement, or what would be the correct meaning of this Upanishadic statement. And Shankaracharya and Ramanuja and Madhva and their followers were fighting with each other. The Arab world at the time was making rapid strides in the fields of knowledge. One of them was Al Hasan, Ali Al Hasan. Europeans have changed his name to Al Hasan. He discovered the concept of pinhole camera. You might have studied about pinhole camera, like if there is a dark box and you make a pin, you find an inverted image of things which is in the light. It's a wonderful thing. And from there, he concluded that eye itself is a lens. And to experiment, to prove that, he took a bull's eye and cleaned it up and showed how the eye was creating the image. The rest is history, because everything was shown as uh, the idea that Greeks had this idea that there is consciousness, there is knowledge, or whatever. It comes out through our eyes, as we accept in Vedanta, and goes out and grasps the objects. This is what we believe, and we firmly believe. But Al Hasan, he changed everything. And when his works were later translated into Latin and finally went to Europe, and this was one of the major discoveries that played a very important in the development of science in Europe. What is important about this discovery by Al Hasan is that my body, my whole body, is a product of cause and effect. So there is light, and here is my eye, which is like a lens. eye enters, and the way there is image formation, say in a camera or in a pinhole camera, just like that there is image formation, etc. And from there, it was later taken up by French philosophers who became the real realists, objectivists. And the idea of cause and effect, seeing is believing. Cause and effect. This cause will produce that effect. So whole of science today is about cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. You see an effect, from there you derive a theory that will explain the relationship between cause and effect. You check it with more and more effects. Now, if you find that something is not fitting, then you discard the theory and come up with a better theory. Seems so simple. But in fact, is it that simple really? If you follow cause and effect perfectly, you can't even play cricket. If you follow cause and effect perfectly, you can't even play football. Play football. You can't play chess. Think, to give you a very crude example, a batsman hits a ball and the ball goes flying. Now, when a fielder looks at the ball, he looks at it at some point, and there are thousands of things working. He himself is running, ball is flying, there is wind speed, there is this and that, and yet the bowler judges correctly where the ball will land, and he takes a catch. Particularly the fielders who are near the batsman, can they really calculate the entire thing? How fast the ball is moving, where the ball will be? No. Those of you might have seen shooting in all Olympics and all, or somebody shooting a bird. We had used this example earlier. A bird is flying, or in a game, something is shot. You look at it. Now, when you look at it, the speed of light is fixed. You look, you look at the bird at a particular spot, information comes, and even if it's moving in a zigzag way, a real shooter shoots it. How and why? Because brain is actually an excellent predictive machine. Those of you who have never thought over it, do please think. Brain doesn't calculate, or rather, brain simply does not store information. Brain is actually a great predictive machine. It goes on creating a world, and the world that it creates, it instructs our different organs to act accordingly. The world that the brain creates, the objects in that world follow exactly the same rule that those objects follow in the outside world. So, how much is cause and effect correct? Well, those of you who know something about atomic physics, subatomic physics, know that the laws of cause and effect fail miserably. If you talk to any of these nuclear physicists, they will tell you the world is not what it appears to be. The world is quanta. The whole world is made up of certain subatomic particles about which most of us have no idea. When we were in school, we thought of electron, proton, neutrons, or they talk about quarks, etc. So world is made up of entirely different things whose rules we don't even understand. It's only the physicists who understand. That much about physics and philosophy. But how really it affects us? It affects us in two different ways. When it comes to Indian philosophy, we also had our own share of these philosophers, and they can be broadly classified, as we mentioned in the previous talk, that whatever the effect, either it is real or it is not real. How? According to Sankhya philosophy, what is produced was already there. According to Nayayika, they also believe in cause and effect. Whatever came out was not there. We discussed it. Those of you who are interested in this subject more, please listen to our previous talk. So essentially, you have two different cause and effect. One which says that what came out was already there. That means it was Sat, it was already there. Another one says what came out was Asat, that which was not existing earlier. Vedanta attacks cause and effect theory exactly at this point. Says people who believe real to be born, when we say real to be born, means real was already existing. And when something new comes out, before birth it was unreal. So unreal is born. So there are two possibilities: real is born and unreal is born. Those who follow the real is born philosophy contradict unreal born philosophers. And unreal born philosophers like Nayayika, they contradict Sankhya, who are real born philosophers. That is Sat and Asat. From here, Vedanta takes over and says that look, by contradicting each other, you are contradicting the birth of Sat, and another one is contradicting the birth of Asat. To remind you, birth of Sat means the thing was already there. For example, when oil is produced, according to Sankhya, oil was already there. And according to Nayayikas, oil is a new product. We discussed in detail in the previous talk, so we are not repeating that. Vedanta says, by contradicting the birth of Sat and contradicting the birth of Asat, you are basically telling that neither Sat can be born nor Asat can be born. So essentially what you are telling, that there is no birth. You cannot have any third possibility. Either whenever something new comes, either it is Sat or it is Asat. There is no third possibility. Either it was already in the cause or it was not in the cause. There is no third possibility. Third possibility is what Vedanta says. There has never been any birth. So the first argument it uses is that the effect was already in cause, is being contradicted, and it was not in the cause, is being contradicted by both of you, each other. So you fight it out. Now we have no quarrel either with you and or with this person. Why? Because we are not taking any sides. Why we are not taking any sides? Because we have no issues. We believe that there never was any birth. So there is no question of Sat being born. There is no question of Asat being born. Both of you are right. Both of you are wrong. This is the first thing which we discussed in the previous talk. If you just see, in case you have difficulty understanding, you just write down the points and idea will become clear to you. It's a very simple argument that the idea that there is a relationship between cause and effect rules our life. This is one. This is something that we have experienced since our birth. And when we say being scientists, being true to science, we mean to say that we believe in cause and effect. The cause and effect has two branches. One, that that which is born was already there. Second one is that which is born is something new. Now, philosophers fight with each other. Because they fight with each other, Vedanta now says, we are not taking any sides. We are neither with this party nor with that party. Because we believe that there never was any creation. And then, what Vedanta will do is, it will take up the idea of nature. What is nature? We are moving towards that. I think it will say, or rather, it will show by its very nature, Atman cannot undergo any transformation. Brahman cannot go under any transformation. So, there can neither be birth of the real, nor can there be any birth of the unreal. Finished. This is what we are going to discuss. By this, Vedanta will be cutting at the root of the theory of cause and effect. So is Vedanta unscientific? No, it's more than science. It's much more than science. Cause and effect is a product of your mind. Why it's product of your mind? Because a functional mind has a brain. A functional mind has a brain. And brain is essentially a predictive machine. And predictive machine will always work on the principle of cause and effect. And that is why you think that there is a cause and effect in this world. Whatever science has to say, whatever anybody has to say, essentially you're talking about cause and effect. But remember it. Cause and effect itself is a product of the brain, not of mind. Mind it. Mind doesn't work on cause and effect. Brain being a predictive machine, mind creates its own reality. I'll give you a simple example. I personally find it extremely funny, extremely funny. It is said that, now this is something which I don't know, I'm not sure. They say that when men walk, they put their left foot forward. And they say that females put their right foot forward. As far as I am concerned, I know. I always I put my left foot forward. I have no idea about females and I've never asked any female. You people would know better. Now, whenever I walk anywhere, here, supposing I'm at the university and I walk, and there is a staircase. So naturally, I'd like to put my left foot on the first staircase, and then I'll go on climbing. That's obvious. Because since my childhood, I have trained myself to move my left foot first. During drills, physical training, etc., we were trained to move our left foot first. I don't know about females. They say they move their right foot first. Anyway, that's not important. I have always been surprised, not now, when I was pretty young, that whenever I walked, if I had to change a direction, whatever direction, left direction, right direction, up direction, lower direction, I knew beforehand, without any actual measurement, that my left foot will not be there. It will be the right foot. And I break my step. I make my steps smaller so that my left foot reaches. I'm sure many of you might have experienced it. Here at the university, when I walk from the gate to the entrance, my steps are measured in such a perfect manner that when I enter the gate, which might be maybe 100 steps or 150 steps away, it's my left foot that enters first. I walk, and it's exactly my left foot that that falls on the first step of the building. Sometimes, because of some distraction or whatever, there might be some mistake in some measurement, which I naturally don't measure every time. I instinctively I know much before that it's my right foot that will be falling. That is not acceptable because that will not give me strength. So what I do is I break my step in such a way that finally left one goes. You might have seen that with cricketers. You might have seen that with long jumpers, high jumpers. They measure it. Instinctively, they know that their foot is going to fall at the wrong place. How they calculate? Brain is a predictive machine. It's a beautiful it tells beforehand without actual measurement this is what is going to happen. Sometimes you might have seen you are reading a sentence, there is a printing mistake. Now I'm an exceptionally bad proofreader. I worked in Prabhupada Bharat magazine of our Ramakrishna mission for many years, and I was considered to be an extremely unreliable proofreader because I'm a very fast reader. Very fast reader. Like a normal book, if it's not a technical book, I can read one page, normal page, in less than 35 seconds. In fact, that's pretty slow speed compared to masters. Consequently, I don't read every word. I don't even read, I don't have to read every sentence. I know what is there because my brain predicts. As a consequence, if there is any mistake, if there is a printing mistake in a word, I skip over it. So if you give me something to read and make corrections, I'll read it so fast that mistakes will remain. I have been branded a very poor, extremely poor proofreader. Content I can tell you. Give me, I can tell it faster than anyone else, maybe. Why? Wherever there is a mistake, sometimes nowadays in the cyber world, they have this game where sometimes they put the letter upside down. Even the brain knows correctly what this word is because it's a predictive machine. Vedanta says that what you're talking about, cause and effect, either the effect is real, that means it was already there, or it is unreal. You are contradicting each other. Because anything, whatever is there in this universe, will not change its nature. Atman can never change its nature. This is what is being said. Verse number 5, we had completed up to verse number 4. ख्याप्यामानम अजातिम तैरनु मोदामहे वयम विवदामो नतै सार्धम अविवादम निबोधत. It's a very simple thing. Says that fine. Unconsciously, these people, that means those who believe in cause and effect, unconsciously, unknowingly, they are talking about Ajatavad. Because those who believe in creation as being real, they contradict those who say that new things are created. Similarly, those who believe that Asat is produced, unreal is produced. Unreal, by unreal is a technical term which means something which was not there earlier. He says unknowingly they are contradicting each other and they are accepting that there is no creation. Why? Because had there been creation, there would have been a unanimity. So you will say, what about your contradiction? So we have no, we fully accept it. Whatever you are seeing as cause, effect, etc., it's all product of mind. We have no objection to that. But as far as Atman is concerned, Brahman is concerned, there cannot be any creation, as the arguments will show. Now, those of you who are interested in knowing more about Advaita, those who are interested in understanding the philosophy of Shankaracharya, If you go through the works of Shankaracharya, that is Gita and other works, you will see that whatever is there in the text, Shankaracharya adheres to that. Till you accept that Brahman cannot undergo any change. So, what is all this change? This is Maya. This is Maya. There is no change, and yet you see change. There is no transformation, yet you see transformation. This is Maya. Sri Ramakrishna have very beautifully explained it, that there was a king and he wanted to understand what is Advaita. And there was a magician, he started moving his fingers, just moving his fingers. There was nothing. And suddenly found that there was a whole army and there was battle and this and that. Nothing was there. It was just magic. Gaudapada says, we don't take sides either with the Sankhyas or with Nayayik. So, oh dear students, Gaudapada tells his students, that means those who are studying Advaita Vedanta, you need to understand Vivadamo nate sadharma sardham or vivadam nibodhata. You need to understand the ultimate truth, ultimate reality, which is beyond any kind of conflict. Advaita doesn't have conflict with anyone. We don't have any conflict. We know you are correct. You are correct because within the field, within the area where you are discussing, you are correct. But that's not the whole truth. Then verses 6, 7, 8, 3 verses, these have been discussed earlier. Ajata seva dharmasya jatam icchanti vadina ajato hi amrito dharmo martyatam katamishyati. That those who are trying to fight with us, they wish to say that Atman, whose nature is unborn, it gets born. So, which is ridiculous. And Mandukya will focus on nature. What is nature? That will make this idea clear. But this verse has been explained earlier. So it says anything which is unborn, which is in the nature, which is in its nature, which is its characteristic, how can it ever be born? How can it ever die? Na bhavati amritam martyam, na martyam amritam tatha. Prakriter anyatha bhavo na katanchit bhavishyati. An undying object can never die. And an object which by nature is unborn can never be born, because nothing can change its nature. Nothing can change its nature. स्वभावेनामृतो यस्य धर्मो गच्छति मर्त्यताम कृतकेनाम अमृतस्तस्य कथम स्थास्यति निश्चलः. So how can you expect that an entity by nature immortal becomes mortal? Maintain that the immortal, after passing through change, retains its changeless nature. Atman is changeless. And those who believe in cause and effect, they believe that it has undergone a change. Now you tell very clearly, has it undergone a change or not? It's a very simple thing. Now you might wonder that what has that to do with our discussion? Look, we are talking about cause and effect, and we are talking about nature, we are talking about Sankhya. Actually, we are talking about God, a dualistic God. Because Nyaya believes in a dualistic God. And practically every religion other than Vedanta believes in a dualistic God. When you say that Nature of a thing is unborn. God is eternal. You say that God is eternal, and then something non-eternal comes out of it. Is it possible that non-eternal thing, was it within the eternal thing, or did something come out of his wish? If it was within his thing, which means that its nature is not eternal. And if it came out something from outside, as we discussed earlier, that those who will believe that creation came out from within God and those who will say it came from outside, they are contradicting each other. So we are left with only one option, that only God exists. Creation, as we understand, does not exist. This is a problem with the dualists, not with bhakti literature. Because in devotion, those who practice bhakti, if you ask anyone, anyone who is a, say, Krishna devotee, real Vaishnava, who has real understanding, he will say that Lord Krishna alone has become everything. Sri Ramakrishna says a very beautiful story that once Krishna and Arjun, they being very good friends, they had gone somewhere, and Krishna asks, Arjun, what do you see on that tree at a distance? Arjun says, blackberries, jamun. Krishna says, look carefully. Then Arjuna says that it was a bunch of Krishna hanging from the tree. Slightly difficult to understand, more difficult to appreciate. God alone has become everything. If you say that God alone has become everything and there is no transformation as such, I am seeing it. Arjuna initially saw jamun, blackberries, or whatever that be in English. And when Krishna said, no, look correctly, and he saw jamun. This is the thing. This is what Vedanta teaches. When you see superficially, you see something. When your mind has been taken to a higher plane by your guru, by your sadhana, then you see things differently. And then if you come across somebody who is seeing what you had been seeing, how can you laugh at him? Because you also earlier saw that. And then Gaudapada hits the nail and starts a discussion on Prakriti, nature. Sang siddhiki swabhaviki sahaja akritachaya Prakriti seti vigyeya swabhavamna jahati. Yeah. Nature is being defined. What is nature? Prakriti. The word for nature in Sanskrit is Prakriti. It has come from Kri Dhatu. Kri means to do, that which becomes, that which is. This sense of becoming. And there are certain expressions. Sang Siddhiki, you will find something interesting that Vedanta is such an old philosophy. And see the expressions, see the ideas behind every word. Sang Siddhiki, Swabhaviki, Sahaja, Akritachaya, Prakriti Seti Vigyaya. That is Prakriti, which has certain characteristics. Swabhavamna Jahati Ya. That is Prakriti, the nature. When acquired, when an object acquires a nature, for example, water becomes ice. Water as an object now has acquired certain nature. What is that nature? Ice is much more cold, much more cooler than water. That nature cannot go away. So, once you acquire it, once you have it, it becomes the first is essential part of the thing, essential part of the thing. Second one is it's the characteristic quality. What is your nature? Sometimes when we are, he say, The fellow doesn't have a good nature. He's not, or sometimes say, he's such a good natured person. What exactly is good natured person? Which when acquired? When you acquired certain values, first is it's an essential part of the thing or a person, characteristic quality. Like Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi, his characteristic quality was non-violence. He may have made political blunders, but that was not his real strength. Gandhiji's strength lay in simple thing that was non-violence. You can criticize his political acumen, but you can never criticize his being a non-violent person or a truthful person. Satya Himsa. He had these two characteristic quality. Finished. Third one is it is its inalienable nature, that something which cannot be taken away from it. It's from birth and which is non-extraneous to it. It doesn't come from outside. Acharya Shankar explains, we will be discussing it once again. Samyak Siddhi, which is essential part of the thing. Acharya Shankara gives example of a yogi. When a yogi practices yoga sadhana, he acquired certain powers. When he acquired certain powers, that power remains. Power doesn't go. So this is, you acquired that siddhi, sang siddhiki. Is an essential part of the thing. Yogi means yes, siddhi. Swabhaviki. Swabhaviki is something which is characteristic quality. For example, when we say fire, we know that fire and its burning power, swabhavik. Fire, fire and its capacity to burn, these are one and the same. And sahaja, samsiddhiki, swabhaviki, sahaja. Sahaja is something which is its inalienable nature. Inalienable nature, for example, says bird and its power to fly. We know that bird has natural power to fly. Sahaja. Sansiddhi, Swabhavik, Sahaj. Apparently, these words have same meaning, but connotations are different. And Akrita. Akrita is, it's not extraneous to it. It has not been done by anybody. For example, they say water flows downward because of the gravitational pull. It's in the it's in the nature of the things to go down. Particularly, water flows downward. So these are the four things. When you acquire something, when an object has innate quality, yogi's power, then fire's burning power, birds flying power, and water's going downward. These are the different examples of nature. Technical term is Sansiddhiki, Swabhaviki, Sahaja, Akrita. Says, even in this world, an object never gives up its nature. Something very natural. Every object in this world, which is defined by a certain trait, doesn't give up its nature. How do you expect that Atman, which is not even born, which is superior to all, will give up its nature? The simple story of a sadhu and a scorpion. Scorpion was biting repeatedly the sadhu, and sadhu was trying to save it. When asked, he says that, look, such a lowly creature, it's not giving up its nature. How can I give up my nature? The story very beautifully explains what is nature. Comes verse number 10. Jara maran nirmukta sarve dharma swabhavatah. Jara maranamas jaranam icchantas chavantetan manishaya. All the jivas, every living being, wherever there is a jiva, wherever there is life, essentially they are free from shadavikara, six changes. Jivatma being Atman is not affected by old age, it's not affected by death. And yet, it appears, it seems as if a jiva, an embodied being, is afflicted by old age and it is affected by death. So, it appears, it appears as if Atman has moved away from its nature. But is it possible? Somebody comes and says that his father has passed away. Who really has passed away? An Atman. Atman can never pass away. The subtle body, which defines a personality, can never pass away. It can just move from body to body. Atman, as Atman doesn't go anywhere. Neither it is born nor it dies. Subtle body, the soul, as per Christian traditions, it moves from body to body. And this body, this is made up of the earth elements, the elements that are found on this earth. It's just like a vortex. Whenever there is a whirlpool, say in water body, water particles go inside and come out. The particles that make Samarpanananda, once I disintegrate, once I am dead, these particles will move on and form new bodies. As particles, I cannot die. As subtle body, I cannot die. As Atman, I can never die. So who dies? Your thought dies, nothing else dies. Such a funny thing. This is what Gita, in Gita, Sri Krishna told Arjuna. Think, who are you? If you think yourself as Atman, Atman is neither born nor it dies. So there is no death. If you think of subtle body, you will keep on moving. And if it's just your, if you go just by matter, then there was never birth. There will never be death because matter particles will move on to form newer bodies. Finished. So, what exactly changes? It's your imagination that changes. There's a snake on the rope. The change lies in imagination. In reality, there is no change. And then Vedanta attacks the very idea of cause and effect. Karanam yasya vai karyam karanam tasya jayate jayamanam katham ajam bhinnam nityam katham chatat. Verse number 11. Sankhya says the effect is in the cause. The effect is itself, the effect is in the cause itself. Creation is by Prakriti. And we are seeing all this transformation. So, how do you justify it? On the one hand, you say these are eternal things, and yet they appear to us as non-eternal. Now, verse number 11, 12, 13, these are extremely important things to demolish cause and effect. As I mentioned in the beginning, that how cause and effect has come to rule our thinking process, and how Vedanta attacks. So this idea of cause and effect in verse number 11, 12, 13, we will have to discuss afresh in detail. This we will take up in the next talk. Thank you.